Hey guys, what's up? Sorry I haven't done a video in a while. We're going to do a little Datsun overview today and see the things that I've done in the little over a year since I've had the car. Lots has happened, lots has been done, and a lot had to be done because I have to actually pass an out-of-province inspection in order to get this car on the road. But fingers crossed it'll be on the road this spring, summer, once it gets nice out. So let's just do a little walk around. I have a Mishimoto upgraded rad. My old one had a lot of sand in it. The engine's been completely rebuilt. It got bored out to basically a 2.8, so 86mm pistons. We have high compression pistons in the top. All new bearings, obviously. Upgraded rods. Got a new cam. My cover is not bolted down because once we do go to start it, it has been a long time since this thing has been made, and as you can see, there really isn't any assembly lube left at the top end on that new cam. So I want to do some more assembly lube on the cam before we do another start, or the first start I should say, not another. And at that point, once that's all done, we will be securing the valve cover down. And I did go with an upgraded cam, nothing too crazy because I do plan on driving it a lot in the city and I do want those lower RPM ratios. So it's not an aggressive cam. I believe it's like 1500 RPM, maybe 2000, up to, I want to say 5500 is the ideal range for this cam. This is a comp cam. I did get upgraded springs. Obviously new valve stem seals, and I actually got a 3-angle valve job done on the valves. I thought that a lot of my valves were probably kaputs, but when I brought it into the machine shop, they were able to actually save all of my valves. They were all okay. They just needed a new cut. They weren't sealing properly. So all new everything there. Well, revitalized the old valves. ARP hardware on the top and the bottom. I will be running these beauties. I got these triple Webers. They were basically remanufactured. They're actually off a Alfa Romeo, I believe. So I got these remanufactured from Calgary, and then I just have to do some more modifying for my intake manifold. That is where our problem lies. This is where the throttle linkage will be mounting to the intake manifold on one of the two spots, and I have a bolt that is definitely not going to clear. I would say I need at least a 1/4 inch gasket, but likely 1/2 inch gasket, just to make sure that I have no problems and I won't be rattling. I can remove some more of that material. I do have a bit more space, but honestly not much before we get into the thread zone, so I do have to do some work with that. One more thing to note here as well is I did go with an internally regulated alternator, whereas these did come with that external regulation box, so we are going to be avoiding all of that. Moving on to brakes now. This is the front. It's a 2-piece rotor from TechnoToyTuning. Looks beautiful. It's too bad you can't see more of the hat because this piece is so large, but very large vented rotor. Huge 4-piston caliper. It moves so nice already. Like, once I get some pressure in there, then we'll be off to the races. Obviously did all new bearings. While I was in there, got the BC Racing coilovers all around, and I got these TechnoToyTuning tie rod ends because my stock ones that I bought new didn't actually clear my wheel, because my wheel actually barely clears any of this. I got so lucky. The car has all new bushings all the way around, energy suspension bushings. I did get the bump steer spacers so that hopefully my geometry will be more level since I'm lowered. But yeah, with the adjustable tie rod ends, that should really help things out. One thing I do have to comment about on these front brakes from TechnoToyTuning is that they are actually by far way better quality. Even though they're all Wilwood and my rear ones are Wilwood, these ones fit properly. They seem like they're made perfectly for the car. They did great machining. The brackets they give you make sense. The only thing I would say is they tell you to put the bracket onto the spindle first, but there is no way you would get this caliper bolt, which you can see, no way you would get this caliper bolt on with a strut, and in their pictures they actually don't have a strut here, so that might be why they said to do it that way. what I did is I actually put the caliper onto the bracket first, torqued it up because it didn't need to go very high, and then put it onto the... So yes, I put the caliper onto the bracket first, and then I put the bracket onto the spindle. No problems there. There's tons of space in here to work around, so that worked out well. All right, now for the rear. I did go to the passenger side. I was on the driver's side for the front brake, but I have better lighting over here on the passenger side. So I went with the Silver Mine dual caliper rear setup because I do need an e-brake in order to pass my inspection. Otherwise, I likely would not have gone so far down this rabbit hole, aside from the fact that it looks good. Some very important things to note. They ask if you want this red powder coated. I did not read very closely, but they just said main caliper. Knowing that the handbrake caliper is not also powder coated, I would have likely just left this as the machine finish look, the silver look, and then they would have matched my up front brakes a little bit better as well. So now I have a whole bunch of colors, so I paid extra for that, and I really honestly wish I didn't have them red now because I think it looks pretty silly. The setup is nice. Again, this is as big as I could possibly go with my wheels, so I'm glad I didn't get any bigger, and that's why it's maybe not as beefy as some might like. My rotor is vented, but it's not as vented as in the front, because in the front the rotor actually mounts behind the spindle, whereas this one mounts in front, so it does take away a lot of my space from my wheel. The caliper itself looks nice. The doesn't have a cotter pin on the front, which is kind of nice, but whatever, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. My wheel at the end of the day, even if this cotter pin came out, would hold these brake pads in because it's very, very close. You can actually see I do rub just a little bit here. I might just put a very small spacer because I did get extended lugs on here. I do have 9-inch wheels all the way around. They are 15s. My offset, I believe, is 0. So thank goodness for all of that. But back to the brakes. Installing these was a pain in the butt. This is a very tight fit, and like I can't, it does turn, but I can't really do it with my hand on the camera because it is very tight. So I'm not 100% impressed with that. Getting this e-brake in here was a pain, and they do actually have an install video on their website. But the guy literally stops once it gets to the e-brake because he's doing it with all of this in here. And to get the e-brake out with everything in here is honestly the world's biggest pain in the butt. So kudos to him for doing it, because I installed my e-brake without my diff and everything in, and then just had it hanging in the back. So I have no idea how he managed that, but kudos. So I would suggest if you're doing this, just put your e-brake in. However, one thing I didn't notice, and I'll go under the car here and let you see what I'm talking about, is the fact that this e-brake does not run, because the cables are so freaking long, I think is part of the problem. It does not run the same setting as your stock e-brake did. So you do actually need to change where the bolt underneath the car, which I will show you in a second, actually sits, because right now I was watching it, and while the e-brake was being engaged, it just barely started to pull on the e-brake there. So I have to do some modifications there, but Datsuns are old and Datsuns are corroded, especially up here in Canada. So unfortunately, that bolt is stuck. And I tried taking it off with a 10 mil, but you can see that the rod itself is actually just going to twist. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about what I'm going to do to solve that problem, but it's currently still a problem. But I hate that. The other problem, which I will show you in a second, is this e-brake cable is far, far too long. I'll just get under the car and show you the problem. But essentially where you run the e-brake cable, since it's so long, starts to interfere with your axles. And I did not want to encounter any problems with rotating parts and e-brake cables, and they're far too long, so they were, no matter, I tried positioning them in multiple ways, and it never worked for me. So it seems, missing the stock e-brake holders. I don't know if my car just never came with it, or someone took it out, or what happened. They are Datsun, so no anomalies go on here. that's my thoughts on this brake. Personally, and I've heard from a few other people, if they didn't have to do this, or they had known these situations before they bought them, they wouldn't have. And I'm very happy with my front brake setup. And I'm still happy, obviously, with the setup, but for the amount of money I spent, it's kind of frustrating that it just doesn't seem totally right. And I would suggest saving some money if you don't need an e-brake and just don't have an e-brake. Let's talk e-brake cables. What a big pain in the butt. This is why I feel really bad for that poor guy who had to do it with everything in here, because you're trying to get those C-clips off. There's mounts in the way. In theory, yeah, okay, probably not such an intense mount up there, but still, diff in the way, mount in the way, everything's in the way. So, definitely do this outside of the car, like when everything's out, if you're going for like a full build and you can have that option. You can see that from all of my maneuvering, the plastic sheathing is trying to come off here, but that's because these e-brake cables suck. This is actually how I ran my e-brake cables. I came from opposite side, so driver's side, went down under the diff, went to passenger side, up through this part of the control arm, and into that e-brake holder, put the ball in. This was the only way I could find to do this, where it wasn't like way too much excess and it doesn't go near my axles. Again, I do think that I am technically supposed to have some sort of e-brake holder up here somewhere. I don't know. I don't have it, and I wasn't really gonna wait again for more stuff. So this is what I ended up doing, and then my plan is to actually zip tie this so that it sits a little more flush and I don't have things hanging down. I'll loosely zip tie it because of course we will have some travel and movement, but at least something is better than what it's currently doing. This was the best solution that I could find myself. Maybe there are better ways of doing it. I tried to find videos and pictures, but unfortunately I don't think many people go this route, which is likely smart. So I couldn't find anything better, but I was just trying to avoid those moving components. And if you go over the top, it just had way too much slack, and you were, especially with the angle of this mount, you're coming right beside that axle, no matter what way you do it. And I've seen people just mount it like the way that it's meant to be, stock mounted, but I just wasn't wanting to take the chance of it hitting those moving components. So that's the road I went. Now I'll show you the problem that I'm having currently with the e-brake itself, and it's not engaging. So let me just move under the car a little further and I will be back. Alrighty, so this is where the e-brake cable basically starts to not work. Like a silly person, I thought that I could just remove the cotter pin up there, and I didn't math it out in my head, so I spent a very long time fighting with that. Eventually got it out, and then realized that, of course, even with that disengaged, you can't possibly get this clip off with a rod moving through it. So this is the bolt I'm talking about. This is where mine sits on my stock setup. It is definitely needing to go further up this way, and I honestly think even if I manage to get it all the way to the end of the threads, which is just to here, it still won't engage fully. So what I plan on doing is I plan on cutting this bolt off. You can see this is like, right now my e-brake is actually pointing at the ceiling, 90 degrees up, which is not, and it's not even pulling the cables. So, like I said, and now I've done that and I can't undo that, but I plan on cutting it basically just in front of this bolt, because as you can see I PV blasted it and I tried wire brushing it and everything, and it just isn't going to come out. So I'm going to cut it in front of the bolt so that I don't hopefully damage this rod, and then I will or dye, I guess, these threads. And I'm going to try to dye them a little further back and see if I can get that to work. I'm not sure what my results will be with that, but pray for me because I need this EBrake to actually work so I can pass my inspection. I did get the Garage Theory frame connector, so I'm really excited to put that on, obviously, once all this is fixed up, and then we will put the frame connector on, and that will help stiffen things up because, as you can see, my rusted frame actually ends here, and then there's nothing here. So it'll be good just to extend that out a little further. These cars did have pretty weak points, so it's going to be nice to upgrade and improve that. I can't wait, and I'll show you guys once that's in. We have a Subaru STI LSD diff. Obviously we want LSD because we have a rear-wheel drive, and not having a locking diff is going to be a pain in the butt. I'm not putting out major power, so it isn't going to be the end of the world, but it's also not going to be ideal. I do have the Silvermine stub axles in here because I needed the flange because I have the 260Z, and of course, well, and also this is a 27 spline, so that obviously doesn't work. But I do have the 260Z, so I ran into some problems with this. So I had the one-off axles that actually went straight into the diff with the spline end on the flange side, so we actually had to get a second pair of axles. So we replaced all the U-joints in the axles. I'm still running stock axles. One day I would like to do a CV upgrade, but again, this car's gotten way out of control, and it's always good to have something to look forward to in the future. So all new U-joints, I got that stub axle in there. I'm using those 280Z flanges. It's another perk of having the 260 is nothing quite works right. This is about the clearance that you should have in the end. I know it seems strange, but just hit her. So I did get the TechnoVersions diff mount, which replaces that leather strap, which did go basically right here and under. So now we have the top mount, and we have an energy suspension mount up in there. Because I did try to put the bolts through the top, I believe you're probably supposed to do it the other way around with the nut at the top. But I didn't have this bar in, of course, and I thought it would be easier to just have a wrench on the top and do the bolt from the bottom. So my mistake. Could always just take this bar off and switch it around if it becomes a problem, but that's kind of how we're going to roll with it for now. Suspension wise, I have adjustable rear control arms. A lot of the main reason that I did do adjustable rear control arms is because my bushings and my stock ones obviously were pooched in this spindle area, and so then once you do remove the spindle, I had to get one of them air hammered out. I actually had to bring it to a shop. One came out pretty nice in the press, but unfortunately the second one did not, so I had to get it air hammered out, and of course you cause damage. I just ended up changing them out, and then now I also have adjustability in the rear for all of my possible problems with lowering the car, so this makes it a little bit easier. I can do like a really nice wheel alignment on this car now. If I had adjustable front control arms, that would make it even better, but aside from that, everything's pretty good. Alright guys, so that's pretty much all I have to really tell you about today. I will try to keep you updated. I will try to post some more videos. There is a lot of exciting stuff in the works right now, so as I find more about that, I will definitely let you know, but I am pretty busy right now with all of that, so I'll try. No guarantees, as it's been a while since I've done any of this. But I did want to give you guys an update on where I'm at, some of the cool little bits that I have, what I think about them so far. Of course, none of this is proven on the road, and we will see how this all fares on the road and see where we kind of get with it. We might need to do a lot of changes to certain systems. Hopefully we get these Webers on here soon. I'm really excited about that, and hopefully I get to hear it, because I've never actually heard this car run, and I'm really excited. Obviously it's not going to sound anything like it would have if I did get it running right from the beginning, but it's going to be exciting to see where we go with it. And there's lots of really cool things I have in store. I think it's going to be pretty rat-roddy in the beginning. This summer I just plan on getting it on the road. I've done the important parts, the internals, the things that really matter, and then I plan on doing the pretty things. Obviously I want a new paint job. I'm still very undecided on the color. I keep going back and forth. I do have one yellow car. Having two would be kind of cool, but I don't know if I need to, so we'll see what happens there. I'm really hoping that come March, it's definitely running and maybe better. And we don't really have too much further that we have to go to get there. It's just a lot of figuring stuff out with this car. Everything is a challenge. You know, you buy parts for it and it has to be modified. No part comes proper. This is what we have to look forward to. I'm pretty excited. I hope you guys are excited too. And I can't wait to show you guys once this is actually on the road or running. I'm definitely going to show you when it's running. So stay tuned. That's coming up. Hopefully I don't, blow my whole engine the first time I try to start it. So that's my biggest concern.